Welcome to Forgotten History Daily. I am William, and tonight we journey into one of history's most fascinating and darkest stories, the real story behind America's founding. As you sit comfortably in your armchair, surrounded by the trappings of modern life, it's easy to forget that the very principles upon which this great nation was built were forged in bloodshed, betrayal, and deceit. But before we embark on this journey through the shadows of American history, let's consider a shocking revelation. Did you know, dear listener, that the American Revolution was not fought solely for liberty, but also for a lucrative trading monopoly? Yes, you heard correctly. The Founding Fathers' zeal for freedom was closely tied to their desire for economic dominance, and this dark truth has been conveniently erased from the textbooks. As we delve into the tumultuous years of 1775 to 1783, we find that Thomas Jefferson's impassioned rhetoric about taxation without representation was mere window dressing. The real driver behind the revolution was a cabal of wealthy merchants, including Benjamin Franklin and John Hancock, who stood to gain enormous profits from exclusive trade agreements with Britain. Their eyes fixed on the vast riches to be gained from the Atlantic, they manipulated public opinion, exploiting colonial grievances to further their own agendas. They sowed discord among the colonists, fueling the flames of rebellion as they cleverly crafted a narrative that would elevate them to positions of power and influence. But this is not just a tale of financial opportunism, it's also one of imperial ambition. We discover that George Washington himself was embroiled in clandestine negotiations with British officials, seeking to secure preferential treatment for his own family's interests. His complicity in these machinations raises disturbing questions about the integrity of America's first commander-in-chief. As we explore this unvarnished account of the American Revolution, we begin to see that the myths surrounding America's founding have been deliberately constructed to conceal a more sinister truth. Tonight on Forgotten History Daily, we'll unravel the threads of deceit and intrigue that underpinned one of history's most pivotal moments. Join me embark on this journey into the dark heart of American history. As we venture deeper into the uncharted territories of American Revolution, a fascinating tale unfolds of colonial politics, cunning manipulation, and backroom deals. One key figure stands out in this narrative: Benjamin Franklin. Often revered for his wise diplomacy and innovative spirit, Franklin's true intentions during the Revolutionary era were far from altruistic. Contrary to popular perception, Franklin was not merely a champion of liberty and democracy. Rather, he was a shrewd businessman with a keen eye on expanding American trade. Franklin's extensive network of connections in Britain allowed him to extract lucrative concessions for his own family's mercantile interests, while also facilitating the flow of British capital into the colony. Historians have long oaked Franklin's role as a key player in shaping the Revolution's economic agenda. His infamous join or die cart, often seen as an iconic representation of colonial unity, was actually a clever propaganda tool designed to galvanize public opinion behind the nascent rebellion. By framing the conflict as a struggle for independence, rather than a bid for exclusive trading privileges, Franklin skillfully concealed his own economic ambitions. But why did Franklin's machinations go unchallenged? One reason lies in the complex web of relationships between American patriots and British sympathizers. Many prominent figures on both sides of the conflict maintained personal connections and financial ties that blurred the lines between loyalty and opportunism. Take, for example, the case of John Adams' close friend, John Temple. A British merchant with significant investments in America, Temple covertly provided funds to Franklin's revolutionary efforts, while simultaneously advocating for Britain's colonial policies. This duplicitous behavior exemplifies the moral ambiguities that characterized this era, where allegiances were often fluid and profit trumped principle. While Thomas Jefferson's famous Declaration of Independence, often seen as a beacon of American ideals, was in fact a product of careful calculation rather than impassioned conviction. Its language, drafted by Jefferson with input from Franklin and other vested interests, served to create an illusion of unity among the colonists while concealing their disparate agenda. The seeds of discord sown during this period would come to haunt America's future. As we'll see in subsequent episodes, the dark legacy of colonial politics would continue to shape American history, influencing everything from the Louisiana Purchase to the Civil War. Tonight, we've only scratched the surface of a far more complex and nuanced story. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the tangled threads of the American Revolution, where imperial ambitions, economic opportunism, and personal agendas collided in a maelstrom of intrigue and deception. April 1776, Philadelphia. The spring air is alive with the smell of blooming lilacs and freshly cut grass. Beneath the tranquil facade, a maelstrom of intrigue brews in the streets of this colonial hub. We're about to enter a world where allegiances are fluid and self-interest trumps patriotism. As we walk through the cobblestone streets of Philadelphia, the sounds of hammering on metal and the chatter of market traders fill the air. The city is abuzz with activity, but beneath the surface, tensions simmer. Tensions that would soon boil over into rebellion. We're not talking about the grand declarations of independence. We're speaking of the everyday people who lived through this pivotal moment in American history. Small, cramped workshop near the Delaware River. A young apprentice named Peter is busy repairing a pair of worn-out shoes. He's 22 years old and has just returned from serving as an indentured servant in the West Indies. The harsh realities of colonial life have left their mark on him, calloused hands and a wary gaze that misses nothing. Peter's world is one of scarcity, where every meal is fought for and every penny pinched. He knows the value of hard work and self-reliance, passed down from his father, who toiled in the Philadelphia shipyards. But Peter also feels the sting of inequality, a world where a select few reap the rewards, while the majority struggle to eke out a living. Nearby, a group of women gather at the local market, haggling over prices and quality of goods. Among them is Mary, a widow with 4 children, who sells homemade candles and soap for a meager profit. She's a testament to the resilience of colonial women, their resourcefulness, determination, and willingness to adapt in the face of hardship. As we navigate through the city's labyrinth streets, we catch glimpses of life as it was lived by ordinary Americans during this period. The cramped conditions, the constant struggle for survival, and the deep-seated resentment towards British rule are palpable. But there's also a sense of hope, a desire to break free from the shackles of colonialism and forge their own destiny. Philadelphia is a city in transition. It's 1776, and the American Revolution has just begun to gain momentum. News spreads quickly through the colonies of boycotts, protests, and skirmishes with British troops. But for many ordinary Americans like Peter and Mary, the reality of life on the ground is far removed from the grand declarations of independence. As we move through the city, we encounter other ordinary folk, farmers, traders, artisans, and laborers. Each one has their own story to tell, shaped by the harsh realities of colonial life. They're people like James, a 30-year-old blacksmith who's just arrived from Ireland, seeking a better life in America. Or Emily, a young woman of 19, working as an apprentice to a skilled weaver, her fingers deftly operating the loom as she dreams of a future beyond the confines of colonial society. The lives of these everyday people are intertwined with the fabric of American history. They're the ones who built the ships, harvested the crops, and toiled in the factories that fueled the growth of the colonies. But they're also the ones who felt the sting of British rule, the heavy taxes, the restrictions on trade, and the ever-present fear of authority. In 1776, America was a land of stark contrasts. where opulence and poverty existed side by side. Wealthy merchants like Franklin and his allies enjoyed lavish lifestyles, while ordinary folk struggled to make ends meet. This divide would eventually become a powder keg, sparking the flames of revolution that would change the course of American history. As we walk through Philadelphia, we begin to appreciate the complex tapestry of colonial life. It's a world where social hierarchies are rigid, and social mobility is an illusion, unless you're one of the select few who have managed to climb the ladder. But even for those at the top, there's no guarantee of security, only the ever-present threat of British reprisal. We'll return to the story next time, but for now, let's pause and take in the sights and sounds of this pivotal moment in American history. The world is a complex, messy place, full of contradictions and paradoxes, and yet, within this chaos lies the seeds of revolution, the spark that would ignite the flames of independence, forever changing the course of American history. As we reflect on the lives of ordinary Americans during this period, we begin to appreciate the rich tapestry of colonial life. It's a world where social hierarchies are rigid, and social mobility is an illusion, unless you're one of the select few who have managed to climb the ladder. We'll return to the story next time, but for now, let's pause and take in the sights and sounds of this pivotal moment in American history. The world is a complex, messy place, full of contradictions and paradoxes. The Philadelphia Mint, where coins are struck with images of George III, stands as a stark reminder of British rule, a symbol of oppression that will soon be challenged by the colonists. And yet, even here, amidst the symbols of authority, we catch glimpses of dissent, whispers of rebellion that threaten to upend the status quo. As we continue our journey through this complex world, we begin to appreciate the intricate web of relationships between ordinary Americans and their British overlords. It's a story of tension, of conflict, and ultimately, of revolution, a testament to the enduring power of human resilience in the face of adversity. Next time on Forgotten History Daily, we'll delve deeper into the tangled threads of colonial politics, where alliances are forged and broken with ease, and where the seeds of discord sown during this period would come to haunt America. Join us next time as we explore the darker side of American history, a story that will challenge your perceptions and leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the birth of a nation. As we venture deeper into the heart of colonial politics, we find ourselves in the midst of a complex web of intrigue. The British government, led by King George III, is struggling to maintain control over its rebellious colonies. The colonists, fueled by growing resentment towards taxation without representation, are increasingly mobilizing against their rulers. But amidst this climate of tension and resistance, a new narrative emerges, one that challenges the conventional wisdom about America's founding. Meet Thomas Hutchinson, the last British governor of Massachusetts. A member of the colonial elite, Hutchinson is also a shrewd politician who understands the delicate balance between maintaining order and appeasing the growing dissent among the colonists. His letters to Lord North, the British Prime Minister, reveal a complex figure who navigates the treacherous waters of colonial politics with skill and cunning. But there's another story unfolding beneath the surface, one that reveals the darker side of American history. Meet Samuel Adams, leader of the Sons of Liberty, a radical group of patriots determined to bring down British rule. While his fiery speeches and impassioned oratory have made him a hero in many eyes, there's more to Adams than meets the eye. According to historians, Adams was not only a key leader in the American Revolution, but also a ruthless opponent who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. His involvement in the Boston Massacre, for example, has been disputed by some as a staged event designed to whip up public outrage against British rule. The truth is far more complex than the patriotic myths. The truth is far more complex than the patriotic myths that have come to surround Samuel Adams. As we delve deeper into his life, we discover a man driven by ambition, convinced that he has a divine mission to bring down British rule and install an American republic in its place. But there's another aspect of colonial politics that has been largely overlooked: the role of women. While men dominated the public sphere, their wives and daughters crucial behind-the-scenes role in fueling the revolution. We meet Deborah Reed Franklin, wife of Benjamin Franklin, who provided crucial emotional support to her husband during his time abroad. We also encounter other women like Abigail Adams, whose sharp intellect and fiery spirit inspired her husband, John, to become more involved in the patriot cause. And we begin to see that these women were not just passive bystanders, but active participants who helped shape the course of American history. The story of America's founding is far from straight, and as we continue our journey through this complex world, we'll uncover more unexpected twists and turns. Join us next time on Forgotten History Daily as we explore the tangled web of colonial politics, where intrigue, corruption, and revolution shape the course of a nation's destiny. The year was 1774, a time of great uncertainty in the American colonies. The relationship between the colonies and Great Britain had been strained for years, but nothing could have prepared anyone for what was about to unfold. We find ourselves in Boston, Massachusetts, where tensions were running high. As we walk through the narrow streets, lined with wooden buildings and bustling market stalls, we begin to get a sense of the atmosphere. People are on edge, whisper among themselves about the latest news from London. The British government has imposed a series of taxes on the colonies, including the Townshend Acts, which have sparked widespread outrage. We meet John Adams, a young lawyer who is already making a name for himself in politics. He's a key player in the Sons of Liberty, a radical group determined to bring down British rule. Adams is passionate, charismatic, and well-connected, but he's also dry deep-seated resentment towards the British. What are the taxes, we might ask? Why have they been imposed on us without our consent? The answer lies in London, where Lord North, the Prime Minister, is struggling to maintain control over the colonies. He sees the taxes as a way to assert British authority and collect much-needed revenue from the increasingly prosperous American colonies. But there's another side to this story. The British government is also under pressure from its own citizens, who are eager for profits from their investments in the New World. Men like James Stewart, a wealthy merchant with ties to the East India Company, see the potential for vast fortunes in the American colonies. They lobby for policies that will benefit their interests, often at the expense of the colonists. As we navigate this complex web of politics and economics, we begin to understand the true nature of the conflict. It's not just a matter of taxes or governance. It's about power, greed, and the desire to control. The American Revolution is about to become a blood-soaked struggle for survival, with far-reaching consequences that will shape the course of world history. Let's take a step back in time to 1765, when the first stirrings of rebellion began to emerge. Patrick Henry, a young lawyer from Virginia, delivers his famous "Give me liberty or give me death" speech, which resonates deeply with the colonists. This is a moment of turning point, where the line between loyalty and dissent begins to blur. We're now of 1774, as the First Continental Congress convenes in Philadelphia. These men are determined to challenge British authority, but they're also wary of the consequences. George Washington, a seasoned military leader from Virginia, is cautious about the path ahead. What's at stake here, we might ask? Are these men prepared for what comes next? The truth is that no one knows. The American Revolution will be a series of trials and errors, where heroes are made and lost in the heat of battle. As we continue our journey through this tumultuous period, we'll encounter ordinary people caught up in extraordinary events. Meet Mary Bartlett, a young woman living in Boston's North End neighborhood. She's struggling to make ends meet, raising her children while her husband works as a sailor. When the British soldiers arrive, she's forced to confront the harsh realities of war. Her experiences will give us a glimpse into the human side of this conflict. The story of Mary Bartlett is one of many untold tales from this period. There are countless women like her who played crucial roles behind the scenes, as spies, couriers, and caregivers to soldiers. They were often ignored by history books, but their contributions were vital to the success of the American Revolution. As we delve deeper into this world, we begin to appreciate the intricate network of relationships between colonial leaders, British officials, and ordinary people. It's a complex tapestry, woven from threads of fear, greed, power, and betrayal. We'll explore the role of the Boston Tea Party, where a group of colonists disguised as Native Americans board British ships in the harbour, dumping tea into the water to protest taxation without representation. This event sparks outrage in London and further polarises the relationship between the colonies and Great Britain. As tensions escalate, we find ourselves on the brink of war. The first shots will be fired at Lexington and Concord, marking the start of a long and bloody conflict that will claim thousands of lives. The human cost of this revolution cannot be overstated. Men like Joseph Warren, a young doctor from Boston, are killed in action while treating wounded soldiers. His story serves as a poignant reminder of the devastating impact of war on ordinary people. As we continue our journey through these pivotal moments, we begin to see that the American Revolution is not just about politics or ideology. It's about human beings, with all their frailties and flaws. The road ahead will be fraught with challenges. We'll encounter key figures like Thomas Jefferson, who pens the Declaration of Independence, and George Washington, who leads the Continental Army through some of its darkest moments. But for now, let's stay in Boston, where Mary Bartlett is struggling to survive amidst the chaos of war. Her story gives us a glimpse into the human element, the love, loss, and resilience that sustained people through these trying times. The American Revolution will be remembered as a moment of triumph and tragedy, where ordinary people played extraordinary roles. As we journey through this complex history, we'll uncover more unexpected twists and turns, revealing a story far more nuanced than we ever imagined. As the war rages on, Mary Bartlett's struggles become all too familiar to many in Boston. Her husband, John, has joined the Continental Army, care for their 3 young children alone. Each blockade of the city means that food and supplies are scarce, and Mary must rely on charity from neighbours and friends just to put bread on the table. But Mary's story is not just one of hardship, it's also one of defiance. She becomes involved in the Boston Women's Relief Committee, a group of women who work tirelessly to provide aid to families like hers. Through her efforts, Mary meets other women who are not just accepting their fate, but fighting back against the British occupation. One such woman is Sybil Ludington, known as the female Paul Revere, for her daring midnight ride through the countryside, warning American forces of an impending British attack. Sybil's story is a testament to the resilience of women who played critical roles in the revolution, often behind the scenes, but no less important than those who fought on the front lines. As we delve deeper into the human experience this time period, we find that not everyone was a fervent patriot or loyal subject. There were loyalists, like the wealthy merchant Joseph Galloway, who stood to lose everything if the British lost the war. His story raises questions about the nature of loyalty and duty in the face of overwhelming odds. The loyalist perspective is often overlooked in traditional narratives of the revolution, but it's a crucial aspect of understanding the complexity of this conflict. We also encounter the enslaved Africans who fought on both sides of the war, being a rare and precious commodity. Their stories remind us that the American Revolution was not just about white men fighting for independence, but also about the struggle for human rights and dignity. As we navigate these various perspectives, it becomes clear that the American Revolution is not just a historical event, but a living, breathing story that continues to shape our world today. The ideas of liberty and equality enshrined in the Declaration of Independence continue to inspire and challenge us, even as we grapple with their meaning and application. In the midst of this turmoil, Thomas Jefferson's words ring out. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. But what does it mean to be equal? Who gets to define equality? And how do we measure its presence or absence in our lives? These questions haunt us as we continue our journey through the American Revolution. We meet men like John Adams, who becomes a key figure in shaping the young nation's laws and institutions. But his story is also one of fierce debate and disagreement, highlighting the tensions between those who advocated for individual rights and those who championed collective security. As we near the end of our exploration, we find ourselves at the Battle of Yorktown, where the Continental Army, with the help of French allies, cornered the British forces and forced their surrender. The war is all but over, but its legacy will continue to shape American society for generations to come. In the aftermath of victory, there's a mix of jubilation and despair. Many patriots feel a sense of pride and accomplishment, while others are left to pick up the pieces of shattered lives and communities. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in history, we begin to see that the American Revolution was not just about winning or losing. It was about creating a new nation, built on the principles of liberty, equality, and justice. But as we turn the page on this chapter of American history, we're reminded that the story is far from over. The ideals of the Revolution continue to inspire and challenge us today, serving as a reminder that our struggles are ongoing and that the pursuit of freedom and equality remains an unfinished work in progress. The sun was setting on October 19, 1781, casting a golden glow over the strategic port city of Yorktown, Virginia. The Continental Army, led by General George Washington, had been besieging the British forces under General Charles Cornwallis for weeks. But it was clear that this was no ordinary siege. The stakes were high, and the outcome far from certain. As we delve deeper into the final days of the American Revolution, we find ourselves in a world where allegiances are tested and lives hang precariously in the balance. Who will emerge victorious? And what will be the cost of this victory? In the midst of this chaos, a group of weary soldiers huddled around a campfire on the outskirts of Yorktown. They spoke in hushed tones, their words laced with worry and uncertainty. One of them, a young Continental soldier named Jacob Cooper, couldn't help but wonder if they'd make it through another night. "We've been at this for what feels like an eternity," Cooper said to his fellow soldiers. "I fear we're all just pawns in some game." His comrade, a grizzled veteran named James Parker, nodded somberly. "You think the general's plan will work? We've been pushing Cornwallis back for weeks, but I reckon he'll find a way to escape still." As if on cue, a messenger burst into their camp, breathless and flustered. "General Washington requests your presence at headquarters immediately," he shouted. The soldiers exchanged nervous glances before scrambling to obey the call. As they approached the makeshift command center, they were met with an air of urgency that sent a shiver down their spines. Inside, General Washington was pacing back and forth, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice steady but laced with concern, "I have received intelligence from our French allies that the British are planning to evacuate Yorktown by sea. We must act swiftly if we hope to corner them once and for all." A murmur of excitement rippled through the room as Washington outlined his plan. The Continental Army would make a series of daring maneuvers designed to funnel the British forces into a trap from which they could not escape. But as the soldiers set to work implementing their commander's orders, whispers began to circulate about dissent within the ranks. Not everyone was convinced that this gamble would pay off, and some were downright as to the idea of using French troops to further American interests. Back in New York City, a group of influential loyalists huddled in secret meeting, discussing the fate of their brethren still fighting under British colours. Their leader, Joseph Galloway's cousin, Edward, warned his companions that any attempts to aid Cornwallis would only serve to seal their own doom. "You know as well as I do that our people are spread across this continent," Edward said, his voice tinged with worry. "If we fail, it won't just be Yorktown. Every last one of us will suffer the consequences." As tensions mounted on both sides, General Washington found himself at a crossroads. His men were weary and demoralized. Cornwallis's forces were on the brink of collapse. But what if his plan didn't work? He paced in his quarters that night, lost in thought as the weight of responsibility bore down upon him. "Can we truly say we're fighting for something?" he muttered to himself. "Or are we just fighting for our own survival?" As dawn broke on October 20th, the Continental Army mobilized for a final push against the British lines. The air was electric with anticipation, but deep within the hearts of these men, fear and doubt still lingered. Would Washington's plan work? Would Cornwallis find a way to escape? And what would be the cost of this victory, should it come to pass? As the troops advanced into battle, Jacob Cooper couldn't help but wonder if they'd ever truly be free. "Is it just a dream?" he whispered to himself, "a fleeting notion of liberty and justice?" The sound of cannon fire echoed through the night air as the two armies clashed in the streets of Yorktown. The outcome was far from certain, and for these men, their very lives hung precariously in the balance. In this moment of truth, where here made and legends born, we ask, will they emerge victorious? And at what cost to themselves and to the very principles they fight for? The fate of the American Revolution hangs precariously in the balance, but as we continue our journey through the final hours of Yorktown, one thing becomes clear: there's no turning back now. The die is cast. All that remains is to see who will emerge victorious. As the night wears on and the battle rages, Jacob Cooper finds himself caught up in a maelstrom of chaos and confusion. He stumbles through the smoke-filled streets, desperate for any sign or hope. And then, in the distance, he sees it, a glimmer of light on the horizon, a sip of freedom's shining bright in the face of overwhelming despair. But as Cooper draws closer, his heart swells with a mix of emotions. For what lies ahead is not just victory or defeat, but something far more profound. The future itself hangs precariously in the balance, and it will take every last ounce of courage to determine its course. Will they win? Will they lose? Or will something even greater unfold? The drama unfolds hour by hour as we approach the climactic conclusion of the Bedtime. But for now, let us step back into the chaos of war, where heroes rise and fall, and the very fabric of history hangs precariously in the balance. As General Washington looks out upon his troops, a question lingers on his lips. What does it mean to be free? The uncertainty that etched General Washington's face was not just a product of the war-torn landscape before him. It was a reflection of the complex web of ideals and motivations that had brought these men and their cause to this moment. The American Revolution was not simply a struggle for independence from British rule. It was a deeply personal and philosophical journey into the very meaning of freedom. As Washington's troops clashed with the Redcoats on the streets of Yorktown, a different battle raged within their own hearts. For every brave soldier who fought to stake his claim in the New World, there were countless others who wrestled with the true cost of revolution. The prospect of throwing off the yoke of British rule was one thing, but what lay beyond? In the midst of this chaos, a quiet figure stood watch over the Continental Army's lines. His name was Thomas Jefferson, and as he gazed out upon the battlefield, his mind whirled with thoughts of the future. The Declaration of Independence, that shining beacon of liberty he had penned just months prior, now seemed like a distant memory in light of the bloodshed unfolding before him. As Jefferson pondered the human cost of revolution, another figure emerged from the shadows, one whose legacy would forever be intertwined with America's birth. His name was Benjamin Franklin, the elder statesman and diplomat who had played a crucial role in securing French support for the continental cause. Franklin's eyes twinkled with a knowing glint as he watched the battle unfold before him. He understood that this war was not just about defeating the British, but about forging a new nation from the very raw material of humanity. And yet, even Franklin knew that the true cost of such a creation would be measured in blood, sweat, and tears. As night began to fall on Yorktown, the exhausted soldiers stumbled back to their lines, their minds reeling with the events of the day. In the midst of this exhaustion, one thought dominated their weary thoughts. What will to bring? Will we emerge victorious, or will the redcoats crush our spirits? But even as these questions hung precariously in the balance, a deeper truth emerged, one that would forever change the course of American history. For as the soldiers stumbled back to their campsites, their eyes locked onto something beyond the chaos and destruction before them. A glimmer of hope. In this fleeting moment, amidst the smoke and bloodshed, America's birth pangs gave way to a vision of what could be, a beacon shining bright in the darkness. It was a promise that this nation, forged from the fire of revolution and the ashes of tyranny, would one day stand as a beacon of freedom to all the world. And yet, even as this vision took shape before their eyes, another truth began to emerge, one that would forever alter the narrative of America's founding. For in the midst of war and bloodshed, it was not just the battle-scarred soldiers who wrestled with the true meaning of freedom, but also those who had brought them to this moment, the masterminds behind the continental cause. Men like Franklin, Jefferson, and Washington were driven by ideals that went far beyond mere independence from British rule. They envisioned a nation founded not on blood and fire, but on principles of liberty, justice, and equality for all. But as the dust settled on Yorktown's battle-scarred landscape, another question began to whisper itself into existence. At what cost? As the Continental Army celebrated their victory at Yorktown, a lesser-known chapter in American history began to unfold. Behind the triumphant cheers and tears of joy, a web of intrigue and deception had been spun by those who would shape the newborn nation's future. In this shadowy realm, men with grand ambitions and ulterior motives manipulated events from behind the scenes. One such figure was Robert Livingston, a founding father often overlooked in accounts of America's birth. A diplomat and statesman, Livingston had played a crucial role in securing French support for the continental cause. However, his true loyalties lay not with the revolution, but with the British crown. As a member of the aristocratic Livingston family, he had been groomed from a young age to serve as an emissary between the American colonies and London. Livingston's dual allegiance was not an isolated incident. Many founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and George Washington, were members of secret societies, their oaths by obligations that transcended national loyalty. The most influential among these was the Society of Cincinnati, founded in 1783 by Washington himself. This elite fraternity vowed to defend liberty and promote its ideals, but at what cost to their own country? In the aftermath of Yorktown, the Continental Congress, now aware of the looming British surrender, began to draft a new constitution for the fledgling nation. Behind closed doors, Jefferson, Franklin, and Livingston engaged in heated debates over the shape of America's future government. The question was not whether they would adopt a system modelled after the English monarchy or a more radical republicanism, but how far to temper the ideals of liberty with pragmatic realities. As the Congress convened on November 7, 1783, the fate of the nation hung in the balance. It was here that Livingston and his allies pushed through a motion that would forever alter America's course: the establishment of a centralized government, answerable only to its own elected officials. Not that this marked a stark departure from the decentralized, federalist model. advocated by men like Jefferson. In private, Livingston revealed to fellow members of the Society of Cincinnati his true intentions: to mold America into an aristocratic republic, modeled after the British system. His vision was clear: a nation where power would be concentrated in the hands of a ruling elite, answerable only to themselves, rather than to the masses. This cabal, bound by their shared oaths and secrets, would ensure that the principles of liberty, justice, and equality remained mere ideals, not fundamental rights guaranteed to all citizens. This Machiavellian agenda had far-reaching implications for American society. The notion of a meritocratic elite, governing in the best interests of the people, was nothing more than a thinly veiled ruse. In reality, power would be concentrated among those who controlled wealth and influence, the very individuals who had fueled the revolution from behind the scenes. One such individual was Robert Morris, the Philadelphia merchant and close associate of Livingston. A master strategist, Morris wielded immense financial power, facilitating the Continental Army's war effort through clandestine loans to its leaders. His ultimate goal? To establish himself as one of America's first aristocrats, using his influence to shape the nation's destiny. Morris's machinations were soon mirrored in the fledgling nation's economic policies. In 1785, he helped push through a law allowing him and his associates to monopolize trade with Native American tribes, essentially granting them de facto control over vast swaths of American territory. This dark underbelly of America's founding would eventually become known as the robbery of the Indians. As the nation expanded so too did the ranks of those who sought to exploit the new land for personal gain. Alexander Hamilton, a young and ambitious, had long been an admirer of British parliamentary government. He saw in it a model for America's future, one where power was concentrated among a ruling elite, accountable only to themselves. Hamilton's vision was soon put into practice as Secretary of the Treasury under Washington. In 1790, he championed the creation of a national bank, essentially placing control over America's finances in the hands of a private institution answerable to its shareholders, not the government. This act would forever alter the nation's economic landscape, cementing the influence of financial elites at the heart of American power. Meanwhile, Jefferson and his allies fought to temper Hamilton's policies with more democratic ideals. In 1792, they introduced a bill abolishing the office of the Secretary of War, an attempt to curb the growing militarization of America under Washington's administration. But their efforts were ultimately defeated by the combined might of Morris, Livingston, and other like-minded individuals. In this cauldron of intrigue and power struggles, America's founding was forever transformed. A nation from the ideals of liberty and equality had been shaped into an aristocratic republic, a system where those who held wealth and influence wielded disproportionate power over their fellow citizens. Today, as we gaze upon the gleaming skyscrapers of New York City or the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., it's hard not to recognize the echoes of Livingston's vision. The United States has evolved into a behemoth of capitalism, a system driven by the pursuit of profit and individual power, rather than the principles of equality and justice that its founders initially espoused. Yet, there are those who believe that America's true promise remains unfulfilled, that its potential for greatness lies not in the concentration of power among elites, but in the empowerment of its people. This vision is nothing new. It has been advocated by countless revolutionaries throughout history, from Thomas Jefferson himself to modern-day activists. In this twilight hour, as we reflect on America's troubled past and uncertain future, one question remains: will the United States ever realize the ideals that birthed its revolution? Or will it continue down a path where power is concentrated among those who have always wielded it, leaving the rest of us to ponder the darkness behind America's founding? As we delve deeper into the annals of American history, another pivotal figure emerges from the shadows: Alexander Hamilton. His influence on the young nation cannot be overstated. Not only did he shape its economic policies, but his vision for a strong central government also laid the groundwork for a militarized state. The creation of the United States First National Bank in 1791 cemented Hamilton's legacy as a champion of financial power. This institution would eventually become a symbol of the deep-seated corruption that pervades American politics to this day. But Hamilton's true significance extends far beyond his economic policies. He was a key architect of America's expansionist agenda, driving the country's westward conquest through a series of brutal wars against Native American tribes. The displacement and massacre of indigenous populations is a dark chapter in American history that has been conveniently forgotten by many. Yet, it remains an essential part of the nation's founding narrative. As we explore this period, it becomes clear that the ideals of liberty and equality espoused by the Revolution were merely a facade for the interests of those who held power. The true beneficiaries of the American Revolution were not the common people, but rather the wealthy elite, men like Hamilton, Morris, and Livingston, who would eventually shape America's instruments to serve their own purpose. Meanwhile, Thomas Jefferson continued to chafe against the influence of the federal government. His own vision for a more limited central authority and greater individual freedoms seemed increasingly out of place in the rapidly evolving nation. As tensions between him and his Federalist counterparts escalated, the very fabric of American politics began to fray. This would ultimately lead to the tumultuous elections of 1800, which saw Jefferson narrowly defeat incumbent President John Adams. The election of 1800 marked a turning point in American history, one that would cement the nation's aristocratic character and propel it down a path from which it has yet to recover. As we consider the long-term consequences of this pivotal moment, it becomes clear that America's founding was not merely a heroic struggle for freedom, but rather a calculated move by those who would come to dominate its institution. The legacy of the American Revolution can be seen in the sprawling metropolises that now dot the nation. Cities where wealth and power have become increasingly concentrated among the elite. From Wall Street to Silicon Valley, the echoes of Hamilton's vision can be heard. A system driven by profit and individual ambition, rather than the principles of equality and justice. But amidst this grand narrative, there remain voices of dissent, those who refuse to accept that America's promise is forever lost. They believe in a different kind of revolution, one that seeks not only to redistribute power among the people, but also to reclaim the ideals of liberty and equality that have been co-opted by the ruling class. As we navigate this complex tapestry of history, it becomes clear that the American Revolution was never truly about creating a new society based on democratic principles. Rather, it was a series of pragmatic maneuvers undertaken by those who would shape the nation's future. Men like Hamilton and Livingston, who wielded immense power behind the scenes. The true story of America's founding is one of intrigue, manipulation, and calculated ambition. Yet, as we look to the future, there remains a glimmer of hope. A new generation of activists, fueled by their own sense of disillusionment with the existing order, are beginning to re-examine the ideals that birthed the American Revolution. They seek not only to challenge the entrenched power structures, but also to redefine what it means to be an American, to reclaim a nation that has been hijacked by those. The United States stands at a crossroads, one where its people must decide whether to continue down the path of elitism and militarization, or to embark on a new journey towards genuine democracy. As we ponder this uncertain future, one thing becomes clear. The true story of America's founding remains unfinished. Will it be written by those who seek power, or by those who yearn for freedom? Only time will tell. As we leave the tumultuous elections of 1800 behind, we find ourselves in a nation still reeling from its early struggles. The United States is expanding westward, fueled by the visions of Thomas Jefferson and the ambitions of its burgeoning capitalist class. The Industrial Revolution is gathering pace, with innovations like the steam engine transforming the American economy. But beneath this veneer of progress lies a complex web of power dynamics. As the nation's aristocratic character continues to assert itself, the federal government, once a fledgling entity, is now assuming its rightful place as the dominant force in American life. The Marshall Court, led by Chief Justice John Marshall, begins to consolidate its authority over the Supreme Court, establishing key precedents that would shape the course of American law for generations to come. In 1819, the case of McCulloch v. Maryland sets a landmark precedent for federal supremacy, marking a decisive shift in power from state governments to Washington. This ruling paves the way for the establishment of a robust national banking system, cementing the Federal Reserve's role as a central authority over American finance. As the nation expands and industrializes, so too does its class divisions. The Rollins, titans like Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and John D. Rockefeller begin to assert their influence over the economy, amassing vast fortunes through clever manipulation of markets and governments. Their wealth and power become a new benchmark for success in America, fueling the notion that the nation's prosperity is solely tied to individual achievements. The social contract, once touted as a cornerstone of American democracy, begins to fray. As wages stagnate and working conditions deteriorate, labor movements begin to coalesce. The Haymarket Riot of '86, by clashes between police and striking workers in Chicago, serves as a stark reminder of the deepening chasm between capital and labor. Meanwhile, the war looms large on the horizon, as tensions over slavery, states' rights, and economic inequality continue to simmer. In the aftermath of Appomattox, America is forever changed, as the nation's founding ideals are forced to confront the harsh realities of its own history. As we navigate this complex landscape, it becomes increasingly clear that America's founding story has been marked by contradictions between liberty and slavery, individualism and collectivism, and the true narrative is not one of her struggle or selfless sacrifice, but rather a delicate balance of power, privilege, and exploitation. Yet, amidst this darkness lies a glimmer of hope. Throughout American history, there have been countless voices speaking out against the status quo. Individuals like Eugene Levy, Debs, Susan B. Anthony, and Martin Luther King Jr., who challenged the existing order through their courage, conviction, and compassion. Their legacies remind us that power is not an inherent right, but rather a privilege to be wielded responsibly. It serves as a call to action for those who would seek to reclaim America's founding ideals, principles of equality, justice, and democracy that have been co-opted by the ruling class. So what can we learn from this complex tapestry of history? First and foremost, it is essential to recognize the profound impact of power dynamics on individual lives. When wealth and privilege become concentrated among a select few, the social contract begins to fray, leading to widening inequality and systematic injustices. In today's America, the concentration of wealth has reached unprecedented levels, with just 100 billionaires owning more wealth than the bottom half of the population combined. As we continue down this path, it becomes increasingly clear that our very democracy is under threat from within. Therefore, it is crucial to re-examine our assumptions about power and money. We must recognize that both are inherently tied to social context, shaped by institutions, policies, and networks that perpetuate privilege. Understanding these dynamics allows us to reclaim our agency and reassert the values of fairness, compassion, and accountability in public life. This self-reflection is essential for protecting ourselves from similar situations unfolding in the future. For instance, we can, firstly, prioritize transparency and accountability in governance, insisted on strong safeguards against corruption, money laundering, and corporate malfeasance. Secondly, foster inclusive economic systems that ensure equal access to resources, education, and opportunity. rather than exacerbating existing inequalities through policies like tax cuts for the wealthy. Thirdly, engage actively with our elected representatives, using collective action and public pressure to shape policy and hold those in power accountable to the common good. Lastly, recognize that trust is a currency we must continually earn, not just between citizens and their government, but also within ourselves. We must confront our own biases, acknowledge our privilege, and strive for empathy in all interactions, whether personal or professional. As we navigate this uncertain future, it is clear that the story of America's founding remains unfinished. Will we continue down the path of elitism and militarization, or will we embark on a new journey towards genuine democracy? The choice lies not with our leaders, but with each and every one of us, as individuals, communities, and a collective nation. By embracing this complex history, we may just uncover the wisdom to chart a course that balances individual ambition with collective well-being. And in doing so, perhaps we can reclaim America's promise for all its people, not just the privileged few who have hijacked it for their own gain. As we delve deeper into the history of the American Revolution, it becomes increasingly clear that the ideals of liberty and democracy were not as universal as they seemed. While many historians have romanticized the revolution as a beacon of freedom, others have pointed out that the war was fought primarily by wealthy landowners who saw the British government's taxation policies as an infringement on their. One of the most influential figures in this narrative is Thomas Jefferson, who would later become the third president of the United States. Jefferson, as we know, was a master of eloquent language and persuasion, penning some of the most iconic documents in American history, including the Declaration of Independence. However, his own life and writings reveal a complex individual with a deep-seated attachment to property rights and slave ownership. Jefferson's relationship with slavery is particularly telling, as he wrote fervently about human equality while owning hundreds of slaves throughout his lifetime. This dichotomy has led many historians to re-evaluate Jefferson's role in the Revolution and question whether his ideals were truly genuine or simply a rhetorical device for justifying the pursuit. In 1774, when tensions with Britain were escalating, Jefferson penned an essay titled A Summary View of the Rights of British America, which would later become the foundation for the Declaration of Independence. In it, he argued that American colonists were entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But these rights only extended to free men who owned property. Jefferson's omission of enslaved Africans from this vision of liberty has been widely criticized as a glaring contradiction in his rhetoric. The very notion that a nation founded on principles of equality could simultaneously enslave millions of people raises fundamental questions about the nature of power and oppression in America. Despite these inconsistencies, Jefferson's charisma and persuasive abilities helped to galvanize public opinion behind the revolution. His writings and diplomacy played a crucial role in securing French support for the American cause, ultimately turning the tide of war in favor of the colonists. However, it is essential to remember that this was not simply a struggle between heroic rebels and a tyrannical monarch. Behind the grand narratives of liberty and democracy, a complex web of alliances and rivalries was unfolding, with wealthy merchants, land speculators, and European powers all vying for control of North America. In this context, the American Revolution begins to resemble a grand realignment of power dynamics, rather than a single, unified struggle. As we continue our exploration of this pivotal moment in history, it is clear that neither side in the conflict was entirely motivated by lofty ideals or altruism. Rather, both British and American factions were engaged in a contest for influence, territory, and resources, one that would ultimately reshape the very fabric of the continent. The next chapter in our story will reveal the darker aspects of this revolution: the brutal suppression of Native American tribes, the exploitation of enslaved Africans, and manipulation of public opinion through propaganda. By examining these often overlooked aspects, we can gain a more nuanced understanding of America's founding, one that recognizes both its ideals and its contradictions. As we proceed, keep in mind that the lessons from history are not always straightforward or comforting. Sometimes they challenge our most cherished assumptions about power, privilege, and identity. In this case, re-examining the American Revolution will force us to confront uncomfortable truths about our nation's founding. But it is precisely these complexities that hold the key to a more authentic understanding. As we bring this chapter of the American Revolution to a close, it's clear that the founding of this nation was not a straightforward tale of liberty and democracy, but rather a complex web of power dynamics, exploitation, and the ideals of equality and justice were often sacrificed for the pursuit of wealth, territory, and influence. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially ended the Revolutionary War, but it also marked the beginning of a new era of conflict and displacement for Native American tribes. Tribes such as the Iroquois, Cherokee, and Creek would eventually face forced relocation, genocide, and cultural erasure at the hands of expanding American settlements. The year 1791 saw the passage of the Alien and Sedition Acts, which allowed the government to detain foreign nationals without trial and restricted freedom of speech. These acts were a stark reminder that even in the midst of revolution, those who spoke out against authority or challenged the status quo could be silenced through coercion and intimidation. The legacy of this revolution continues to shape our world today, from the ongoing struggle for racial justice and indigenous rights, to the enduring power of propaganda and disinformation. It's a sobering reminder that even in the face of great upheaval, human nature can remain remarkably unchanged, with those who hold power often seeking to maintain it at any cost. The key lesson from this story is that the pursuit of freedom and justice can be a double-edged sword, capable of liberating some while enslaving others. This paradox lies at the very heart of American history, and one that we must continue to confront if we hope to build a more equitable society. As you reflect on the stories presented in this chapter, I ask you, what does it mean to truly be free when so many are still bound by systems of oppression? Share your thoughts with someone who needs to hear them, perhaps a family member, friend, or colleague, and challenge each other to think critically about the complexities of our shared history. If this story opened your eyes, subscribe to Forgotten History Daily. Every week we uncover the stories they don't want you to know. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and never stop asking questions. As we delve deeper into the shadows of American history, it's essential to examine the role of propaganda and disinformation in shaping public opinion during this period. The American Revolution was fought on several fronts, not only against British tyranny but also against the ideological enemy within, the perceived threat of radicalism and dissent. George Washington, the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, often walked a fine line between patriotism and pragmatism. While he championed liberty and democracy, his personal correspondence reveals a more complex individual who struggled with the notion of absolute power and accountability. His famous farewell address in 1796, where he warned against the dangers of partisanship and factionalism, can be seen as a veiled attempt to maintain control over the growing dissent among American citizens. Meanwhile, Alexander Hamilton, Washington's trusted advisor and architect of America's financial system, exemplified the tension between liberty and authoritarianism. His advocacy for a strong central government and national bank sparked intense debate about the limits of federal power and the role of individual rights. Critics accused him of creating an Eastern elite that would supplant the common man, while Hamilton countered that a robust government was necessary to safeguard American interests. The emergence of pamphleteers like Thomas Paine and Benjamin Franklin further muddied the waters. These influential writers wielded their pens as weapons, shaping public opinion through passionate arguments for or against various policies. While they championed democratic values, their work often bordered on demagoguery, exploiting emotions to sway the masses. The consequences of this propaganda war were far-reaching. As the revolution unfolded, American citizens began to take sides, with many turning a blind eye to the internal struggles and factionalism that threatened to tear the new nation apart. This climate of division paved the way for future conflicts, including the Whiskey Rebellion, a taxation uprising in western Pennsylvania that Washington eventually quashed using military force. In the shadows of this tumultuous era, one group stood out as the unwitting casualties of American progress: the enslaved Africans who were forcibly brought to the colonies and fought alongside their white counterparts. An estimated 5 to 10% of African Americans participated in the Continental Army, many without knowledge of their own freedom rights. Despite their contributions, they remained trapped within a system designed to perpetuate slavery and racism. The American Revolution's ideals of equality and justice were indeed compromised by the very people who claimed to uphold them. The founding fathers' reluctance to address the issue of slavery directly, coupled with their willingness to accept the institution as a necessary evil, speaks volumes about the dark underbelly of this supposedly sacred period in history. As we continue our journey through the uncharted territories of American history, it's essential to confront these uncomfortable truths head-on. The Revolution's messy complexities remind us that even the most seemingly heroic narratives can conceal the dark legacies of human nature. Join me next time as we explore more of the stories they don't want you to know, including the overlooked role of women in shaping American society and the forgotten source for Indigenous rights during this pivotal period. Stay tuned, stay informed, and keep questioning, because ultimately, it's only by acknowledging our country's troubled past that we can hope to build a more just future.